Welcome to episode 13 of the Global Exclusive Podcast. I'm your host, Hazard, and I'm joined this week by Cotton,
Oh dear, I don't have an introduction. Someone go and break Bharos up.
Dreamblitz,
PSA, preemptive attacks suck.
Muspel,
Esther is the best damage dealer in the game right now that was released during April of last year and got enhancements this week.
and Shadowwalker.
If you slept on Baihu, now is the time to enhance them.
Speaking of sleeping, I think that's where Bharos is right now.
Poor Bharos, we can't needle him about not pulling on Full Metal Alchemist.
The morning slot is rough.
Yeah. This week we are begrudgingly sponsored by AR Chains. AR Chains, the only chains that actually work in Dark Visions, the trashiest event we've ever had.
Did you say you don't have cotton?
Muspel, can you explain why you like Furion so much?
I feel like I'm seeing some holes in this theory.
But good thing is, Cecil is actually useless.
Well, like, do we want to start with Dark Visions then? Just because you brought that up.
Yeah, we're right in the thick of it. Yeah, we can get to units. Well, this week we've got we've got the other two esper units that came out, Akstar and Fina. We've got enhancements to Esther, Sylvie, and Elephim, and then we've also got Ishtola, and then we've got Dark Visions event, which has been on everyone's minds. I know in this podcast. It's been a big grind. So let's get started with Dark Visions. I know we talked about it last week with Sinzar. I really didn't know what to expect, even with the introduction that we had. And I can say that this is the most annoying event I've ever done in Final Fantasy.
I guess for Dark Visions, I'll take the opening bit in that the first day I was really excited. It was fun. I really liked the first area because it really stretched my imagination on how to use units. And I mentioned before, Baihu has been my only single target magic chainer, and they scale off attack but do magic damage, which was great. But the second area is a gong show because of all the preamps, and I hate preamps and hate gearing for the preamps, so fuck that shit.
I think preamps are fine when it's like a big trial that you have to worry about once a month. And even then it's not every trial, but when you have 5 bosses in a day that all have different preemptives that you have to gear for, I guess a couple of them use the same element, but it's such a pain in the ass.
It's mainly that there's a score penalty for it, because like if you could just gear a bit to like survive it with half health, then sure, but you need 100% passive resist on 6 units or you're losing score.
Yeah, and to be fair, there like for 2 units, for all your damage dealers, you can use the builder. For the other ones, you can just throw on whatever resist gear gets to 100%. You don't have to think about it much because they're probably not dealing damage. They just need to be immune. But it's still frustrating.
To be fair, it does make it a lot more difficult for newer players to clear it because they don't have the amount of resist skills that us veterans do have.
That's definitely true.
Right, but this isn't geared. This isn't made for new players.
Yeah.
This event is clearly made for veterans.
Well,
Yeah.
Shadow, you said that this helped stretch your imagination on what you could use. For me, it was the opposite. It was like, I don't have any of the units that would be good for this, except I had Vivi. That was the only person. But using AR chains, I think the problem with Dark Visions for me is it combines my 3 least favorite things in the world, which is evasion, tanking, changing gear all the time, and trying to perfect chain AR frames. It's like, I hate that.
Have you considered using Mercenary Ramza? I hear you don't have to change his gear. I don't remember who told me that, but there was some guy who really thought that was a big upside.
2.5 years.
So I think one of the things that this event highlights is that our current gearing system is mega trash. Like, we need to be able to sort by killers or sort by other different things, like this way the search system works. It's gotten better over the past few years, but it's still like it takes forever to gear one unit for a specific thing versus going on the builder and trying to copy. And me, I guess this might be a big like a vet whale problem, but like I have to scroll through so many different things to find the exact item that I'm looking for, and then because I'm blind or because it's such a text. There's so much text. I miss it and I have to scroll through it again. I think that's why it takes so long for me to gear it.
That's why star player Titus is so good, because his TM starts with an A, so you can equip it easily. And if you have Squall's STMR, that also starts with an A, so you can get that if you're sorting alphabetically right away. It's 2 materia slots that are just geared instantly.
Muspel never makes it past D.
Oh man.
It's funny though. This event is so like, all right. Well, if you're a whale, congrats, you get a perfect score. Everyone else, hopefully you pulled for Roy, Mustang, or Vivi, or you have one of Carton, Regina, or Noctis. If you don't have one of those 5 units,
Therian.
I don't think it's even any of those 5. It's Zon. Zon's been
Oh,
like
yes,
everyone's big ass
definitely.
care.
I totally disagree. Like he's very very useful, but he's not essential. Like you can get by because if you're doing a finisher strat, for example, and you're just doing support chainers, only the finisher is the one that really needs the killers and the buffs, right?
Not
So
really.
Zon
No,
isn't
not
as quite as
not
useful.
not for the stage 2 and 3 and later stage 3 ones. Like what was it? The Manticore I think was so tanky that even the finisher couldn't kill it.
I did not have
I had no
problems
problem killing the
Manticore.
units.
I had problems
but
with not killing it before
I
my
mean,
third
like
cast
Sid
started.
could kill it, but he couldn't overcap. He couldn't hit the damage cap. So you do need support chainers.
I didn't get anywhere near damage
Yeah.
cap in any of the second stage at all.
That's why you need Zon.
I have Zon. He's in my party.
I did not use Zon. I was able to cap damage in several of the stages in the last zone. But I think it. I guess my take on it is that I think Zon is not as important as people are making him out to be. He can help a lot, but if you have certain units, he's not necessarily contributing a lot. Because if you have like Noctis or Therian, then they can be the main source of your damage, and they've already got those killers for themselves. And copying the imbues and buffs isn't that big a deal. So it depends on whether or not you already have a good source of the killer buffs.
So for our listeners who weren't here for our pre-recording conversation, Muspel, can you explain why you like Furion so much?
So I don't have Carton. And Therian, his LB, which is fully charged at the start of the fight, is AoE, and it does pretty good damage, and it buffs his killers, and he has a lot of innate killers. And I think that for regular trials where you're trying to like struggle through fights and you don't necessarily have the best gear, Therian isn't great. But when you're doing dark visions and you're trying to blow stuff up on turn 1 and you need AoE and you have to gear multiple damage dealers for killers, he's excellent, especially if you have his STMR. He's not as good as Carton for the most part, but I don't have Carton, so he ranks a decent substitute.
There we go. He finally admitted it. Furion's good.
Yeah, who are you and what have you done, Muspel?
I never said Furion was bad. I said Furion was bad for casual players.
So are you admitting that you aren't a casual player? Or that you are a casual player?
I mean, he's good for me, and he's bad for casual players, so that means I'm not a casual player.
Or
to be
are
fair,
you?
I think this podcast has really helped Dream and Muspel kind of come out of their casual shells into
I know,
into
right?
being actual players.
I know, right? Muspel is actually clearing trials on day 1. What have you done to him?
Really, it's just made me less lazy.
I've been highly impressed.
I mean, I'm still definitely a casual. I mean, my current Dark Visions ranking is 6.5k.
Oh, I'm at 8,000 right now because I quit after Area 1.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've done 7 fights so far. I did actually cap damage on 2-2, which was nice, and I don't have any finishers. So, but Edward's putting in work because as I mentioned in sort of our pre-discussion, but as something that might be handy for the viewers, is Stardust Ray seems to have a slow enough startup time where even with the AoE chaining and cancelling mechanic on that, you still seem to get your triple cast in. It queues up quick enough. So yeah, it's pretty much just been carrying damage on physical stages. Mage stages, on the other hand, I have nothing good for and score like 8 to 10k on damage so far.
The problem with the mage stages is that mages are bad at them. So you have to use hybrids or one of the SPR-based damage dealers, and we only really have like 1.5 good SPR-based damage dealers.
Which is redacted and by who?
No Lila?
Yeah.
No Lila love? Remember when people were all over her?
I mean,
Chocobo
The
Fina is
third best one would be
okay.
Chocobo Fina, I think. And then
but
Kimono
yeah, her
Ayaka.
mods are really low by now.
Yeah, she's
We
not good.
need enhancements for those ones.
Yeah, I think the problem with the event, I mean, it's still like a fun event. I complain about it, but it's really it really stretches you in a lot of ways. But I wish there were. Oh, I wish the chaining requirement was not 100 because it basically leaves you with very very few options as to what you can do to reach that.
I mean, talking about AR chains, I didn't need to use that on physical stages because I could cap the chain count with just triple Stardust and double Flood, actually. Kokoro and Leviathan are putting in their work here.
I think the problem I have with the chain requirement is that it means that like chainers generally don't burst as hard as finishers. And because you need AR chainers and there aren't really there's like one strong AR chainer in the entire game right now, then that means that your chainers are just there for support damage.
Esther doesn't count.
She can't really do it on turn 1 typically, so I wouldn't really count her. Also, she's single casting, and you need dual cast AR from 2 units if you want to cap the chain count.
Or if you have like 2 single cast ARs and like 2 other chainers matching family.
Or just 4 people doing single cast AR.
I have not had good luck with 4 single cast ARs. I can't click them fast enough to reach over 100.
I just use like 4 triple cast Stardust for physical stages at least.
Yeah, I just feel like it's like my team comp for almost everything is 2 random AR chainers. It doesn't really matter who, they're not doing any damage. They're just there for chains, and then 2 units that I'm basically just using as finishers. Occasionally they technically are chainers, but they're really just being used as finishers. And I feel like if the required chain count were lower, then I would be using like actual chainers as chainers, and I might care about their damage. But because all of the AR chainers aside from Levinson are so weak, it's not worth it if you don't have them.
Yeah, we've got a couple units that are global exclusive that I think are been pretty useful. Zon was mentioned. I think he's being a little overhyped. He's very useful, but I don't think he's required. Sylvie is another one, and we'll get to her enhancements. But Sylvie is another one that I think is pretty adept for this one. She's been my evade tank, buffer, and breaker, and imbuer all in one. So that's been pretty good so far.
No, I actually prefer Zon though. Like, you don't really need a buffer for Dark Visions because most of the newer damage dealers already buff their own attack or magic by like 250%, so you don't need a buffer.
Yeah, but they don't necessarily do that on turn 1 without sacrificing damage. So if you can have somebody buff on turn 1, then you can kill the boss on turn 1 and get those higher turn points.
Depends on your comp.
Yeah, but see, I don't have Carton or Regina or Noctis, so all my physical kills are turn 3 kills with Sid.
Yep, same.
Yeah, I'm not in the same boat as I think the rest of you are trying to kill it on turn 1. All my clears have been either turn 2 or turn 3.
Most of mine are 2.
So
the only fight where I didn't kill on turn 1 were the Manticores. I mean, I could have, but I found that I could get a higher score if I stalled until turn 2.
Must be nice.
Yeah, that's been.
I'm over here on turn 3, just looking over longingly.
I do want to say though, I think that there's some people who are saying like you absolutely need Masterminds on, or you absolutely need Carton or whoever, and that's if you want to get a high rating, and that's not true. I don't have either of those units. I don't have Roy Mustang. I do have Noctis. I do have Furion. I do have Schwen.
Yeah, exactly. You have the redacted unit. That thing is carrying all your scores on the magic stages, alright?
Yeah, so I'm currently ranked at like 160 or something.
Because of redacted.
I guess my point is, just because you don't have all of the best units, that doesn't mean you can't compete. There is definitely gear involved. There's definitely, you will need some good units, but don't panic just because you don't have one unit that everybody is talking about, because if you have a developed roster, you might have good alternatives.
Yeah, as I said, you have to get creative with what you have.
Well, I think also I kind of had to talk myself off a ledge, because after the first day, I'm like, I suck at this game. I don't have any of these chainers. I'm never going to get this stuff. But you realize if you look at the rank and rewards, the difference, and since I talked about this last week, is the difference is maybe an extra DV event. If you don't get the highest scores, like you're not going to be losing a ton of stuff. There's a few nice rewards in there, like EX tickets and stuff. But in reality, you can take your time with this.
Yeah, like it's 10k 10k for a rainbow, and 5k gets you a level 10 weapon in 3 events. So that's pretty much the main things to worry about.
Yeah, but bragging rights. And the fact that I can't let Muspel beat me in rating, okay? Muspel, the supposedly casual player.
I pulled ahead of you earlier today.
Oh snap!
Get good, Cotton.
Yeah, I'm the highest rated person on the podcast at the moment.
I know. I saw this morning and it's like I'm like, how does this happen?
Yes, he
It
has
has to be
Noctis.
because of Redacted, because my scores and my magic stages are pulling me down.
But you have Roy.
Yeah, if I had Noctis and Schwen, I'd be higher.
No, Roy is only good in stage 1 with all the fire weakness. After that, it's all
I
dark
have-
and lightning.
I have not great scores.
I don't have Sakura, I don't have Vivi, and I don't have the Redacted. I refuse to Omnipresent that 7-star. It's a matter of principle.
Wow.
Good
I mean,
for you.
honestly, with some of the magic finishes, if I had any of them, I would probably use them off element and still get a better score, because like with a good Imperial, they're still doing like 1.2 times damage from element compared to like 2.5 from supported element. So
Not necessarily. I
if,
found
if,
like
Yeah.
if they hit hard enough, then they can still actually be a pretty good score improver even off element.
depends, I guess. I found my score on the 2-1 improve a lot more when I threw in Blossom Sage Sakura, okay? Blossom
I
Sage
found a way.
Sakura.
I found a way to nearly triple my damage, and it's because when I first started using Wild Rose Furion, I forgot to level his LB. So that made a really big difference.
Wow, big surprise.
What a novel discovery. Yeah.
Okay, Muspel is back to normal. All is right in the world.
There was a Sinzar video uploaded recently, and he did all the magic stages with physical DPS because he got tired of, I guess, re-gearing. Yeah, and if you look at the video,
damage
he's
scores
still,
would have been so bad.
but he still got like 70,000 points from it.
Ah, gee.
So as
Maybe-
long as
maybe I should
you
try
get
it.
the
I mean, I'm
maybe
rated
as long
higher
as you
than
get the
Sinza,
right
so
elements.
that's a small
I
consolation.
mean, yeah, but
Can just let Channel finish.
I'm just saying it's
I thought they had.
Or not, because you
I
just
thought
all
they
keep
had
talking
like
over
defense
Shadow.
that was 10 or 15 times higher.
what?
It's a lot higher, yeah. I just used my hybrid AR chainers and then swapped my finisher between physical and magic.
Yeah, I don't have a magic finisher, so it
Yeah,
sucks.
must be nice to have a finisher for either.
Only one, and only because of nostalgia.
One unit that I think we haven't talked about, who's also been pretty important for this, or at least for me, is Regis. Because he has, like, on turn 1, he can do 200% AoE buffs, and he also buffs killers for, what is it, humans, undead, demons, and I think something else. What was the other one?
Fairies?
Yeah, I know
Yeah,
it's come up
fairies.
for several different fights in the first couple areas.
But yeah, there's a few ones that are really hard to find killers.
Aquan, okay. Screw Aquan killers.
The whole second stage is difficult just because you have to gear for the elemental resist. And you lose so much killers.
I think it depends on the kind of unit you're trying to gear. If it's a TDW unit, they may not care that much. If it's like an LB damage based unit, they're gonna struggle probably.
So I didn't think of the Furion suggestion that Muspel made earlier, and I'm now getting better scores. Thank you, Muspel.
Yeah, I have a Furion that I might use now instead of Sid just to see if I can get some turn 1 damage.
If you have his STMR, that makes a big difference. Without it, I think he's a lot less impressive. He's still good, but he's not as much the poor man's Carton as he is like the homeless man's Carton.
See, that's the thing. I don't have Furion, I don't have Carton, and I don't have even the 7-star Tidal, so I doubt I'll be able to do any good turn 1 kills anytime soon.
Did you say you don't have Cotton?
I don't have Carton.
Oh, okay.
Oh man.
Yeah, to be honest, I think the biggest factor for me is I don't want to do it again. I don't want to re-gear this and go back. So I'll probably just stick with the scores I have.
Yeah, I'm definitely doing each stage once.
Shame on you, Hazard. Shame on you.
Being able to just use just reattempting one stage and using reload and making small tweaks before you move on to the next one makes it a lot more tolerable. Because if you do them all in order and then you want to go back, it's a pain in the ass. So you have to re-gear everything. But as long as you're keeping your setup probably mostly intact between attempts, it's a lot more manageable.
Yeah, I've only had to reset my game about 1,000 times trying to get AR chains to work.
Yeah, I ended up resorting to a clicker. So
Yeah, congrats to everyone who doesn't have iOS.
I mean, you could use an emulator.
It works better for Sid. For some reason, quad casting Doomsday with VV screws it up and makes it almost impossible to work. So those I had to reset probably between 30 and 50 times each stage that I had magic finishing. So that's why I hate this event.
Just like go and buy a cheap laptop and get Mimu installed on it.
Oh yes, let me spend hundreds of dollars so I can get a higher score on a random event for a pixel
I said
game.
a cheap laptop, like get a used one.
So just for positive insight, because we've been complaining for the last 20 minutes. One thing that I really liked is that they actually brought the staff in
The rod, you mean?
early, or
Yeah.
the rod early. Yeah, the rod, because the rod is the one that's really powerful. I mean, the sword's great, but it's just everyone wants that rod.
Yeah, the rod's
So-
more universal.
Exactly. So I'm glad they brought that one back. And one of the things is that Luna Freya has been a godsend in all the water physical stages. Like, she has everything you want in turn one, especially that one aquatic physical magic stage. I
Oh,
thought that was
God.
brilliant. So
She's great.
You know what else
Yeah.
is great about Luna Freya that I forgot about? Her Benevolence of the Gods buffs LB damage.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes,
it
it does.
normally doesn't matter because usually any unit that uses their LB has their own LB damage buff. But for turn one, it's great.
yes.
Want to know what's not so good about Luna Freya though? Not having her.
Womp womp.
Oh man,
So-
should have pulled on her.
Yeah, I think we've probably complained and about this event enough, and Shadow has given the one lone positive comment.
I don't know. I enjoyed the unit like picking side of it at least, but the gearing's annoying.
The
The gearing's annoying.
The gearing is
yeah.
annoying. The AR chains are annoying, but I feel like it's a new and exciting event. It's something challenging. At least for me, it's been very very challenging. So I get frustrated while I'm doing the event, but sometimes after I'm done, I can look back and appreciate it a little bit more. And I would say that's what it's been for this event because I hated it while I was doing it, and I'm sure I'll hate it again tomorrow for the third stage. But I do appreciate it. Looking back, I was like, oh, that was kind of fun actually.
It definitely needs polish. I know JP went through a bunch of iterations and is still like kind of making tweaks to it in terms of like what counts for scoring. And I think that it has potential, but it's not all the way there yet, for sure.
I mean, what I love about the event is that you don't basically people who don't lapis refresh farm the event non-stop can actually score high like me and Muspel. It's like you don't have to spend a loads of lapis just to score really, really high on the event.
You spend loads of lapis getting energy.
No, you just
To get high-
spin the lapis in the past to get the units.
No, this is where I argue that Full Metal Alchemist was a really good investment, okay? Roy Mustang is killing the magic stages. Edward and King Bradley are killing the physical stages, especially those AoE ones.
One of the things that I've enjoyed this week is ever since Dark Visions, there are two things that happened. One thing is that the community has reacted to the wiki ratings. They people were like, "Oh, remember when Muspel told us all the mages were bad? But I don't have mages now because of him," or something like that. I was like, "Wait, what?"
It was all a secret plan.
I mean, the hybrids are still better than mages.
And the second thing is that people are making so many bad decisions. I saw like Furcula UOC like 3 different units in one day, and he ended up getting one from the 5-star MK event anyways. And then another person like enhancing some unit because he thought it would be great, but then it didn't turn out so well either. So it's like, yeah, now we're all dumping our resources, all the gil, all the snapper, all the cactors into all these shit.
Yeah, people are definitely buying into the hype. I'm not an exception. I UOC'd Regis and I UOC'd Ephirian to get his STMR.
I use it on
And
Sid.
I leveled up and enhanced a whole bunch of units today.
Me too.
Yeah.
I am out of gil.
Yeah.
I'm actually out of gil
Yeah.
right now.
How are you
I
out
how
of
are
gil?
you
was
out
like
of
20
gil?
million gil.
I have 180
spent
million.
I spent like 30 million gil and I still have 130 million.
Yeah, I have 180. I did enhance Sylvie, so I have 170 and change now. I don't know how you guys run out.
I have less than 2 million.
Do you just like not do raids or something?
I just don't do raids after a certain point. You know, after you get the
Oh.
rewards,
Oh, there we
I
go.
just stop doing the raid.
Yeah, I mean, I've
Yeah.
gone from 32 to 13
All
million.
these casuals on the podcast.
So that's not great.
Casuals. Get the hints.
Says Muspel.
I mean, the more you listen to Muspel, the more you think maybe he really isn't a casual after all. I mean, which casual has nearly 200 million gil?
So, we did get the second half of the Esper units this week. We got Bahamut, Fina, and Sura Akstar. I don't know how to say their names, but Fina, I think, is a little bit more hyped, I would say, than the other ones.
So Fina is a mage, and she also has white magic to support. Like, she actually has a decent. Like, if this was 2 years ago, she'd be an amazing healer, but this isn't 2 years ago. But anyways, her damage is really high. Like, it's the highest of the mages that we've gotten so far, and she. That's it. She has two elements of fire and dark and light. She does big damage. She has white magic support abilities, and there's nothing really much to say. Like, it's really boring. Like the rest of
she's got some evoke damage that you pretend is regular magic damage, and otherwise just don't gear for evoke at all.
She also fills the Esper gauge some, just as a byproduct of being there. But really, she's a chainer with a little bit of support on the side, and she's another one of those units where there's not much to say.
She is good though.
Like, I can imagine if I was playing, if there was a Dark Vision stage that was specifically made for her, I would definitely say that. And just as an offside, I was talking with someone, and I think I finally realized the purpose of these Esper units is specifically for Dark Visions, because some of them are carbon copies of their old units, except that they're not the same units. Technically, they can be used in tandem together, because in Dark Visions you can't take dupes. So I feel like these Esper units were made to attract people that wanted to like min-max Dark Visions.
Except like for ones like Sol, old Sol is Chaos Wave, new Sol is Chaos Wave Awakened.
Yeah, that's so weird.
And then like Ifrit Rain doesn't really work with Eldor King Rain because their limb bursts have completely different frames and rotations.
You would actually expect the limit burst to have the same frames at the very least, right?
I feel like I'm seeing some holes in this theory.
I don't know. It worked for Fina and it worked for Akstar. It didn't bother to check for Sol and Rain, so there's that.
It's been interesting. I know you guys mentioned a lack of polish recently. I feel like Gumi has really dropped the ball on a lot of different things, little small things. But like, we'll talk about Ishol, but not changing her frames. Like these old ones not matching up. The DB event, like they only had 9 months to fix and tweak it in JP, and for some reason we get the 9 months ago version, like the original version, instead of the cleaned up and improved version of DV. I just thought that was really super lazy, and and it may have something to do with the quarantine going on right now, but I feel like they've had plenty of time to get like a load and save thing knocked in there. I just don't understand.
Yeah, I think it might be
get that kind of stuff.
Might be something to do with programming itself, like because they're trying to port a feature from the future update of the game into the current update, and that might screw up the spaghetti code even more. So hard to say.
Yeah, you don't want the spaghetti to get too tangled.
The solution will be not making spaghetti code, but
it's a bit late.
Yeah, but how do you unspaghetti spaghetti code? Like, does it even work that way?
You have to rewrite the whole thing.
Yeah. So FFBE 2?
Yeah, they're not going to do that. So the other unit on the banner is Isur Akstar.
Yeah, so he, again, as Shadow said, he's quite similar to original Akstar, where he has a bunch of convoluted setup for his different moves. The main thing he does is he uses his cooldown. One of his cooldowns will like upgrade all of his moves into like Asura's version of the moves, and they keep themselves upgraded, but it can make things a bit annoying with his rotation because he also needs to use his limit burst for attack buff and mod boost, but that of course breaks the upgrade chain because you need to use at least one upgraded skill every turn, so you then have to wait to use the upgrading cooldown until after the limit burst, and it's just really a mess overall, and his damage for all that work is just kind of mediocre.
I mean, I looked at his unit page on the wiki, I see all the upgrades going on, and I just absolutely refuse to use him, even though he is meta. Okay, I will.
You guys have really sold him well.
At least he can do a big burst pretty early with his limit burst itself, because his other cooldown that doesn't do the upgrading gives like a 250% damage buff for it for the next turn. So that's something. But yeah, he's like, whereas Fina was a bit stronger than Sol, Akstar is a bit weaker than Rain, so he really is just kind of the troll of the banner.
And let's be honest, all 4 of the sprites are trolls. Like it just reminds me of Brave Frontier, 8-star, Omni, whatever it's called. Just you can't even tell what's going on because the unit's so convoluted.
I actually kind of like Ifrit Rain just because he looks a lot different than the typical Rain units. Like he looks like almost along the lines of like some kind of crazy wild barbarian guy, just because of the way that he's floating in his hair and all that.
He's a floaty boy.
I think he's the least offensive of the 4. Soul is like his sprite is so ridiculous. I love Soul, but holy crap!
You got lost in Hot Topic.
Yeah, the Hot Topic version too. The whole gang is now at Hot Topic.
I feel like Axter's combined form in like his win animation, that looks pretty good, and like some of his animations are quite cool, but yeah, his just regular idle sprite is messy to say the least.
I do like their win animations, all of them, and I really wish that their win animations, like their combined form or whatever that's called, that was their normal sprite.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say too. If you're gonna do it, then do it with the combined sprite as the time sprite.
Yeah, basically for all the Esper units, their combined sprites are good, but their normal sprites are horrible.
Missed opportunities is this game in a nutshell.
Speaking of missed opportunities, we've got enhancements this week, and holy crap!
All right, shall we start?
This is all over the board. Let's start with the most amazing fail I've ever seen, which is Esther.
So I'll take this one because everybody knows that I'm Esther's biggest fan. And her enhancements really do a good job of making people relive the same feelings that they had when she came out. Because you look at her kit and it's unbelievable. It's her damage is not what you would expect from a unit that's coming out at this point in the meta. The problem is that it's in the opposite direction. Because when Esther first came out, she did like triple the damage of anyone else, and now she's dealing half the damage of the top tier units.
Literally half. It's terrible.
I mean, I think the best part about it is that enhanced Esther does less than pre-nerf Esther by a little bit.
That's truly amazing. Like you really have to.
That's not actually true. Pre-nerf Esther was like 13 or 14 billion.
Pre-nerf Esther with current gear would do more.
Maybe that's true. I haven't checked her.
And you shouldn't.
The thing is, I understand how and why this happened. I think that Gumi wants to reserve the best enhancements for units that weren't good on release. So they want it so that people are afraid to skip banners because they want people to think, well, this unit isn't good now, but if I don't pull on them, then maybe they'll get enhanced later and they'll be top tier. They want that fear of missing out for people to
like Chin, basically.
Yeah.
Like Yigo.
And
Well,
Tifa.
I'm not saying they're batting 100 on this. Yego was still awful, but we've seen it with units like Tifa, where these units that weren't great on release ended up being very strong after enhancements. And then we've also seen units like Jekt. Jekt was, when he came out, the best chainer in the game, aside from, I think Felix might have been a little bit better, but nobody cared about Felix.
Ouch.
And Jekt's enhancements just weren't as good. He was significantly behind Tifa. So I think the general theory is that each unit should get one chance to shine, or each damage dealer should get one chance to shine. Sometimes that's when they come out. Sometimes it's when they get enhancements. But I think that there's people who are expecting that there's this unit that's going to come out and break the game, and then they're going to get enhanced and they're going to break the game all over again. And for damage dealers, that just doesn't seem to be the case.
There are a few exceptions I can think of, just like old Frivia. was really good at release, and then she was really good at even after
I
enhancements.
think 6-star meta was a very different animal.
No, even Aurora
Maybe,
Freya
yeah.
was pretty good on release as well. And then when she got her latent, she jumped right. When she got her enhancement, she jumped right to the top of the hybrid charts also.
I want to say Afra is also an exception just because she got latents and enhancements on the same day, as if she was like a collabor or a limited time unit. Like the only treatments that have, like Baihu and Shin are the other only ones that got enhancements and latents on the same day.
I also think it depends
get that sort
on
of
when you
treatment.
consider Afry's release date to be. If you think it's the Fanfesta, she was great when she came out. If you think it's when she had an actual banner in game where people could get her without going to the Fanfesta, she was a lot less impressive. And even when she came out, she still wasn't even the best hybrid. Kurasame beat her by like a third.
Let's be honest, once you start gearing for Kurasame for actual like bulk, his damage isn't that much more impressive.
Yeah, but back in the day that didn't matter. You didn't have to do that. We didn't have like fixed attacks all over
and
the place.
especially pre-latent Aurora Freya was pretty skimpy as well.
True.
Yeah, especially
Back
with
to
that TM
Esther
that
for a
had
second.
1 defense and SPR.
Yeah, we've gotten a bit sidetracked, but
Well, I wanted to say, like, with Esther, I agree. I didn't expect her to be meta. Like, I didn't expect her to be doing 32 billion damage like Gilgamesh and Edward, or even in the high 20s. I thought she'd be doing 20 billion, maybe 22 billion, like if you really wanted to be optimistic. But 16 billion was a disappointment no matter how you look at it. Like, it just was a joke. I just don't understand what they were doing. It's just they wanted to piss off a lot of people. I don't really care about Esther, but I just thought she'd be like, decent. But she's barely decent. Like, she's just struggling.
You know the
Hey,
ironic
that was
thing?
kind of
Come on, Hazard. She outdamages Yego.
No, not true actually. I think
isn't she,
Yego
like, very
outdamages
slightly
Esther.
below?
I'm very sure Yego actually outdamages
No.
Esther, alright?
I
No?
calculated it. Esther beats Yego by 0.1%.
wait,
Well, on paper. In practice, I think Yego wins because of LB damage gearing.
Oh yeah, I was looking at Focula sheet. Like on Focula sheet, Yego actually beats Esther.
But you have to realize Ego is still isn't majority of Ego's damage still from
No.
damage over time?
so
No,
it's pretty
almost none of it is. And any unit that has damage over time, most of their damage does not come from it unless they're Kaito.
Oh.
Yeah, Diego does 17.5. Esther does 16.7, according to just the wiki stuff.
Even Beatrix did better with his.
Her nerf. If you look for Beatrix, she was a huge disappointment in many people's eyes, and she does 20 billion damage.
I think that kind of goes back to what I said earlier, because when Beatrix first came out, she was terrible. But then they gave her enhancements, and now she gets a chance to be good.
I mean, she was pretty good after enhancements, I think.
And then decent after late.
Her enhancements were okay, but really nobody. She was mediocre at best, I think.
Well, why don't we talk about the other more interesting enhanced units, because clearly she's the one that got the short end of the stick.
Well, if we want to talk about the other Easter unit, which is Sylvie. So I know we talked about Sylvie a couple podcasts ago and kind of what we expected or wanted, and I think we all agreed that the worst direction they could have taken it was to make her slightly better at everything and not give her any sort of real niche, and that's exactly what they did. And that doesn't mean that her enhancements are bad, but
I don't agree that they didn't give her a niche. I think they gave her a niche. It's a niche that we already have 3 other units that can do it. She's now a combined breaker/buffer.
Yeah, I think that's the defining factor, that her breaks got at a high enough level that she can do that roll compression, same as Chin, Fu, and maybe someone else.
Elephim.
Oh, Elephim's actually got good breaks.
Yeah, but I mean, it's the buffer breaker combination.
Yeah, buffer breaker combo.
But the thing with Sylvie was like, okay, she wasn't a good breaker except for emergency breaks to set up a breaker who couldn't do turn 1 breaks, and then she couldn't heal except for her regen that you couldn't unlock until turn 4. But she had some good stuff in her kit, like buffs, the typed mitigations, the imbues, and we talked about wanting to get her to get triple cast more often. They did do triple cast more often, and they did improve the buffing pretty significantly. She does have the 300% single target buffs, which for DV is very useful if you can spread it with Zon or just put it on your finisher. But I was hoping that they would really focus on the typed mitigations a little bit more. Like I really wanted them to get up to like 35%, even 40%. I would have gladly gotten rid of that 5k heal they put on it if I could have gotten 5 more percent mitigations. But at the end of the day, like I think I'm being maybe too picky. Her breaks are good enough. 65% is good enough to replace, a full-time breaker for most content. It kind of opens up some team comp strats. But as you said, Muspel, I think the fact that there's 2 other units that already do a very similar role, and maybe 3 units that do it, made it a little bit less interesting for me.
I think one of the things that we what saw from her is that she's a worse version of any of the other aforementioned units, in my opinion.
I don't entirely agree with that. I think
No,
that
I don't think so.
she
Yeah.
has edges over each of them in some ways. Like she can handle elemental resist very well, which Elephim and Fu can't. She can do typed mitigation, which Chin can't. Her breaks are better than Chin's. I think Chin's are 60%, right?
Shins are 65.
I thought that was Fu. I thought Chin only had 60.
I think they're both 65, but
Yeah.
Fu can go up to 70 with
that's
the
it.
upgrades.
So Chin can spam his 65% breaks, but he has no other higher breaks. That's the problem.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
So that the only reason I say that is because like typed mitigation isn't as important as we thought it would be, and it's actually available with some of the more some tanks like AWOL and some healers. And then there's the whole why did they waste resources on giving her heal when that's literally the one thing that she didn't need at all. So
well, if they were going to give her a heal, they said in the video that it was going to be a potent heal, like Kiraja level or something that could really be useful. But putting it on a typed mitigation that you're only going to cast once every 4 turns, I just don't see. I mean, there's like a side benefit to it, but it just really doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But I think Shadow, you pointed this out. The 30% typed mitigations are super unimpressive because your tanks or your healers or other supports can do very, very similar numbers. Like at 30% magic mitigation, Charlotte can do. I think Cecil does better than that. Your physical tanks are doing the physical mitigation just as well. Aiden does the physical mitigation. I don't know. It just overall it was just kind of unimpressive to me. Still great. Like she's still an awesome, awesome unit, but I had some higher hopes for her.
I think
and
the problem is that
they
it
really
feels
lean
like
Choo choo.
Okay, I mean they
Here we
really
go.
lean into Sylvie's role as a jack of all trades. Like before enhancement, she was a jack of all trades. Now after enhancement, she's a better jack of all trades. Like it is kind of true to her role.
No, she's just a jack of more trades. She's not. I think she was a jack of some trades before. Now she's a jack of more trades than before, but not really any better than she was. She just does more things well rather than a couple things really, really well.
one of the things was that like we pointed this issue out like 2 or 3 weeks ago in our last podcast when we talked about Sylvie, is that all of her abilities have been like partitioned out to other roles already in this point in the meta. So instead of making her a great breaker, like if they made her breaks at least 70%, I think it still would have been that's what would have been made her like stay in my party.
Yeah.
I think the problem is that her enhancements, like clearly the biggest upgrades that she got are to her breaks. The stuff that they did to her buffs it's not bad, but it's not as noticeable. But the problem is that even with the upgrades, the breaks just aren't that impressive. So we end up with some buffs that are okay and some breaks that are okay. But I just feel like she's not an interesting twist on the breaker buffer combination. She's just shuffling around a few things that Fu and Chin already had to make a remix of the two, and it's arguably a worse remix.
And Fu and Chin are already so good, so it's like really hard to top that. But it's a disappointment because if they made like I keep bringing this up with everyone else that but if they made her spammable breaks 70%, that I still think that would have been fair, considering that Elephim has 75% spammable breaks. So it's like we're already at an era where 70% spammable breaks doesn't break.
I honestly wish that they had leaned more into making her an offensive support. I know, like, from a wiki rating standpoint, that's not something we care about much. But I think in the context of Dark Visions, if she had gotten Strong Imperils, if she had gotten, like, if her imbues had become AoE, if her chain grants had gotten, like, higher modifiers or also granted like triple cast for them or something, then that could have been very interesting. But as it is, she's like original Noctis. She does a bunch of things, but isn't that great at any of them.
Also, just speaking of disappointments, Bharos woke up.
Yeah, so I was. This was an interesting experience.
I was going to go a different direction, Dream. I was going to say, speaking of things showing up late, with Elephim enhancements, we have Bharos.
Oh, that would have worked too.
Wait, were Sylvie enhancements late though, or we're talking about Elephant maybe?
Elephim now.
Alright, but yeah,
Yeah,
speaking
okay.
of breaker that can actually buff, we have Elephim here who is actually really, really good after enhancements. Like all her breaks become 75%, and they also buff the corresponding opposite stat by 200%. She also gets like AoE on-demand light imbue with a 180% buff. She gets actually a lot of heals on the limit burst, and her new unlock also gets like a 20% heal. So like depending on your unit, she can also compress the healer role into the buffer and breaker roles. Like imagine using Elephim with someone like Warrior Light or Child. Like you don't need to bring an
There
actual
it is.
healer. Shut
I
up,
knew it.
As predicted.
Yeah, Cotton is the new Muspel, but it's just Chow instead of
Redacted.
whatever the fuck that unit is called. Yeah,
Thank you. That's what we're now going to call that unit.
yeah, whatever the fuck.
So I think with Elephim, if you look at the other buffer breaker combos, they tend to have very full featured buffer kits, but then slightly subpar breaks. Elephim has I don't want to say full featured breaker kit because that's not really a thing, but she has strong breaks. She has 75%, which is that's very standard. It's not like below average like the other ones. But her buffs are comparably not as good. She has 200% stat buffs, and that's really it. She doesn't do mitigation. She doesn't do tight mitigation. She has like an AoE imbue and some healing, but she doesn't have a lot of the more standard buffer stuff, the kind of things that you would bring like a dedicated buffer for. But
I'm gonna
the
say,
fact that the breaks
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
are so strong means that she's still a very good unit.
I guess it's what you're
yeah,
looking for from your buffer role. Like if another unit can handle the tight mitigation and you don't need all the other stuff that buffers bring because your healers can do it, like you can just drop the buffer role easily.
I think the biggest problem that I have with Elephim is that because she's late, we're at the point now where there's so many non-buffer units that give stat buffs. And if you have stat buffs handled by somebody else, even if they're not 200%, Elephim isn't adding as much as she once would have.
I kind of disagree with that because the whole idea, what you're saying is that there's a lot of units with stat buffs, but at the same time, a lot of these units don't have stat buffs at turn 1. I'm thinking of like Awakened Warrior of Light or Cecil. Cecil might not always have his 180% buffs, defensive buffs up because he might have to do something else. But the other thing is like AWOL, he has 250% undispellable buffs, but it's at the end of the day, that's on this limit burst, which you want to mostly do at turn 2 or turn 3. So Elephant being able to break and give 200% buffs on turn 1 is actually really good, not just for your big trials that we do, but DV, because in DV, if you want to have Elephant's one of the more slot efficient 200% buff plus 75% breaks if you don't have access to 80% breaks like I do. So Elephant has been mighty fine for me right now.
And I think Bharos wants to say something. I think Bharos wants to say something. I probably should let the guy speak since he spends most of the chat, most of this podcast.
No, you should interrupt him once more.
He missed his chance.
No, but so I'm gonna go ahead and do what I always do. I'm gonna say something stupid. So I was one of the people that was so excited about Elephim. I really wanted her enhancement. I was so happy when I got a random second Elephim, like several months ago, on just sharing her off banner. But she's so underwhelming. Like, I'm not gonna lie. I realized that the breaker buffer roll compression really doesn't do shit for me. Like, sure, it's really, really strong buffs. And sure, it's really strong breaks too, like 75% on demand that get reapplied is crazy good if the boss is dispelling. But that's kind of it, right? I mean, you're not really getting anything else out of that slot. And I've started to realize with the units that we have and with the other units that can do a ton of roll compression, I don't know. I was actually underwhelmed when I started using her.
There is another thing to keep in mind with Elephim, which is that she has very good action economy, because she uses her, like, once she really gets rolling, she uses her LB once every 4 turns, and that applies buffs and breaks, and then you don't really have to do anything else. So you can give her, like, an Esper and have her apply Barga elemental resist buffs. You could give her, like, Pod and have her keep up physical mitigation, or a bunch of other stuff, because she has the spare time to do it, which is not common for support units. They tend to have spare turns, but they have things that they really want to fill that space with already.
You could really get down with the Wiki Radiance and equip Crazy Day on her and have her use that.
Oh my god.
I mean, if you play it long enough, you can equip Jade Moon Pendant on her so she can buff ailment resistance as well.
Yeah, I think I would disagree with Bharos though. She does have the AoE Light Imbue, which can be very useful. She's got the HP MP regen stuff, both under LB and as a cooldown, which can be very nice. I think you know what is really missing a unit I've always wanted to see is a unit that focuses specifically on mitigations and barriers. I know the perfect unit for it, and it's the white mage guy from the orders. I just forgot his name, of course. Now that I need it,
Shamlin.
Yeah, I think Shamlin would be a perfect unit to do that. But he would be like a great pair with someone like Elephim, who's handling buffs and breaks, and then you can handle the mitigations and barriers with Shamlin. But I think if you are using two tanks,
mitigations and barriers, isn't that just Nicole of the Delta Star?
Nicole? Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Isn't that Nicole?
Or Epsilon
Isn't
Star?
that Alfonso?
No, but they do like they don't do a lot of they don't focus on barriers and mitigations. They have them and they're decent, but like I want a unit that's really good.
He has 30% physical and magical mid and a spammable 3k barrier.
Yeah, those are all pretty standard issue stuff. Like I want if we had a unit
5k barriers and 50% magic.
No, but 40% mitigations with some nice cooldown big ones that you could have.
I bet the answer's going to be Pwn.
Oh, are you talking about Luna Freya?
Pwn. But then there's the disadvantage of actually having to pull for Pwn, which sucks.
Oh god, no.
Oh no, is that what Pwn does?
I know
Yes.
she is good, but
Probably.
on one hand she is good.
I officially retract my statement. Please do not introduce Pwn into the game, or at least make it Shamlin with Pwn's kit.
Because exactly what you mentioned is what Pwn does. Because Pwn on one move has type mitigation of 45% and 3k barriers on one move.
Pastor, that's not how you say the name. It's not Pwn. It's Peony.
I don't care.
What?
Peony is
all of those characters are named after flowers, and Peony is a type of flower.
But she's obviously named Pwn, although maybe she gets renamed for GL.
Tsuguromu.
No, I'm gonna only accept a compromise of Pony. That's as far as I'll go.
Okay, we shall do that.
But that's interesting, although it could be that her name will be Peony when she comes to GL.
You guys know this song?
I mean, they did name Tegmine Degumin initially, so it could just be that they messed up the localization.
Was that the Bow Chicka Bow Wow song? No?
No, this is Genuine.
I have no idea what's going on anymore.
Yeah, you did it horribly. Just gonna say it.
You just feel so hard
Last episode,
off topic.
the people want to hear
one thing I
Pastor
wanna-
sing
No, but
again.
okay.
Freaking millennials.
Can I try going on
Yeah,
back?
and I want to go back to Elephim, okay? Calm
Yes.
the fuck down, everyone.
Thank
So,
you.
I didn't mean that she's a bad unit. I just meant that my experience was that just the whole compression thing that she brought that I was so hyped up about wasn't actually that strong in the end. And I think that's because our meta has kind of crept up to the fact that I can get really strong breaks elsewhere. Strong buffs elsewhere while still not losing a slot.
Well, I think contextually speaking, you're right in that JP didn't get to experience like for the longest time, breakers just broke in JP before Elephim came out and changed everything. But here we've had Kryla, who's has a multi-role Facetur, and then Chin and Fu also came out earlier in the year, who also were amazing at what they did in terms of being buffer breakers. And then Elephant comes out and now it feels like she's a bit behind, but I don't think she's behind. I just think she's different. I think it's a side grade, not an upgrade.
Yeah, exactly. I think they released her at the right time because when she was released in JP, I think she was so hyped up because she did this unique thing that was unheard of and really hard to slot into your team normally because otherwise you're just running Fid who could do one thing only, right? And that was pretty cool. But now, especially like for DV, who's slotting Elephim in?
I am.
The other thing to keep in mind is that in JP, Elephim's enhancements came before Cecil, and they also never had Myra. So again, this is the thing: if you didn't have a dedicated buffer in JP, you probably didn't have stat buffs, or at least not very strong ones. But in GL, we just have so many non-buffers that can give stat buffs nowadays. So Elephim isn't doing as much.
JP was basically like 110% from Charlotte because, yeah, for a while, pretty much all trial teams I saw were like double tank, like Charlotte and Galuf, Elephim, healer, two chainers. And yeah, so in that kind of team comp, compressing those really, really strong buffs with the strong breaks is good, but yeah, it just doesn't do so much in GL.
I think breakers have gotten to a point. We've gotten enough collects breakers to a certain point that Elephim doesn't feel like it's out of the world crazy. But I still really like her, and the only reason my main breaker is Chin, but then Elephim Enhancements came out this week, and I did enhance her, but I'm switching between those two. But I'm sticking with Elephim for DV, but I think for trials I'll probably stick with Chin. So yeah, I think that's how it'll end up being for me.
Yeah, I think for trials I will probably use her at some points over Kryler, who I've currently been using. But for DV I'm using Sylvie pretty much as my breaker because the fights are short enough that her uptime and switching to the 65% isn't even an issue. You can just use the cooldown ones.
Yeah.
It's like Fire Whip.
And there are better things to compress there as well.
Oh, Muspel.
Did someone say Fire Whip?
Oh, Muspel.
Yeah, it wasn't even an issue because I used Sylvie. Muspel used Fire Whip. Has anyone used Tsukiko Tiamat?
Sinzo did. It sucked.
No, unfortunately not.
Did
yet.
Muspel actually use Fire Whip?
He did.
Yes, I
Why?
gave it to Nagy, and then I cried.
Why?
Your train is complete, Muspel.
I gave it to Nagy because I needed her to have a fire weapon, and it's the highest match fire weapon that I had.
Why?
It's the highest one she could equip.
Why?
Why are you not imbuing
Yeah, I
though?
suppose it does just have the innate element.
Not only did I give Nagy fire whip, I gave Aurora Frivia the replica fire whip.
Oh god.
Oh, cool. Which fight was that? You actually pulled ahead of me on DV with these strats.
This was actually on an earlier attempt. It's not my highest scoring one anymore, but it was for the Manticore ones.
We've broken Muspel. Muspel is top 100 something in DV and is using Fire Whip. What has happened to you?
He's also singing the praises.
Let's be clear. He didn't use Fire Whip to get top 100.
Yes, he did.
Let's be honest, Hazard. When you understand these top tier meta strats, it's very easy to get top rankings. Because I asked Fujimoto-san specifically about this, and he gave me all kinds of details about the kind of strats that I should use on this trial.
Well, how much of this dead horse are you gonna beat, Muspel?
He has an expert understanding
stop
of
beating
balance,
off horses.
synergy, and power.
I don't think the horse is dead enough
What?
yet, okay? That's why we're still beating it.
Somebody needs to post a gif of Muspel beating the dead horse and it's like Neptune's band on it.
No. I don't want to see Muspel beating off a dead horse.
If you want to see Muspel beating a dead horse,
God.
just come into Wiki Ratings at any point of the day.
And enjoy.
So we actually did get a free unit as well that does about the same amount of damage as Esther. And this is Ishtola, the Sorceress.
Are you serious?
Wow.
Yes, she does 16 billion
Yep.
damage.
And that's with only like a 75% external imperil. She sadly doesn't have any of her own, which is just always an annoying design
But
decision.
it's okay. You can pair her with one of the many top tier Chaos Wave chainers that can provide an imperil for her.
Speaking of lazy
Top
design,
tier.
Oh wait.
they forgot to give her Chaos Wave Awakened chains, or just didn't want to, I guess. But
It's
yeah,
free
it's kind of
units.
disappointing.
Yeah.
Free unit disease.
It's a bit of a shame.
Do you think they do this on purpose? As in, do you think they keep the free units with Chaos Wave because they're expecting, people with free units will only chain with other free units, therefore she needs only Chaos Wave? Like, do you think there's a logic to this like that?
There's never logic to any of this.
Or they're just too lazy to update 3
yeah,
units.
there's
Yeah, what was the logic between just switching from Chaos Wave to CWA? Because like the two families are so like I would have understood if they wanted to introduce a different family. Like we have Absolute Mirror and we have Bolting Strike, but they took like a family that exists and just got changed a bit by one of the chainers in the game, Terra, and that's now the standard family. Like what the
to
fuck?
be fair,
I can tell you exactly how
CWA
this
is
happens.
much easier to chain than CW.
Having more than 5 hits is nice too.
This happened because Ishchola is a free unit, and Gumi did not care enough to change a free unit.
To be fair, they have never changed a 3 unit, like, ever.
Well, that's actually good news then, because from now on, all the free units are generally good. Generally.
Yeah, because we've got ones like Lightning and Machina coming up, and they're really nice.
Yeah, Lightning is arguably better than Charlotte.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that because I need a magic tank upgrade. So that's gonna be
you don't have
great.
a
I'm
Cecil?
gonna be starting using a free unit like a scrub.
You mean you didn't pull for Cecil, Bharos? Oh my.
Yeah, why didn't you pull for Cecil?
Yeah, I hate you all so much.
Oh, there's actually
But good thing is, Cecil is actually useless, at least for me, since I don't have him in DV. I was gonna say.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
yeah. I personally never.
No,
used
but
him
I
in
feel like
DV.
he maybe wouldn't.
Never have.
Sorry?
I've never used him. He's perfectly worthless.
Yeah, yeah. No, but actually, that's I. Does anyone do that though? Like, does he actually have a place in content like
The
DV?
later stages.
Yep, I've been using him. I've been using him on physical stages just as like to tank the magic damage before like the preemptives came into play, and then turn 2 with mode switch. He's been good as a triple SR
Oh
bot.
yeah. Huh.
Having the AoE imbue, having the SR chains, having even some elemental resist buffs, which could be useful in some cases. He's actually not bad for DV. He's not like the unit that you bring to every fight, but he has his uses.
I wonder whether he would get more. Wonder whether Cecil will get more uses in like the stage 3 of DV since the bosses get harder.
Well, the stage 3 bosses are actually just trial bosses, like especially the stage 3, 4, 3, 4, and 3, 5. From the videos I could tell, they're just regular trial bosses. And you're just on the timer, I guess. So yeah, you definitely want to tank and a healer by that point.
I think I'll look forward to that more. The one thing that was kind of surprising about DV, I know we've long been past the topic, but the fact that they gave us 15 stages and we only get 1 week to complete the whole thing is kind of insane. For anyone who has like a job or a family like me, it's been really hard.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, if
I fully agree, 100%.
I mean, if you don't care about score, you can just literally clear all the stages once and get the rewards.
It's a bit, that's a bit disingenuous, just because it doesn't mean you need to go and kill them like once. You want to kill them with the most optimal score when you're going the first time, if you want to do that, and that still takes time, especially with our shitty gearing system and how. So like
yeah, and the problem is the whole problem is locked behind this concept that it's always going to be different, not just a different element, but also then you also have to like use a different party slot to get the element buff, and even worse, then you have the preemptive attack, so now you have to gear all of your fucking units for shitty elemental resistance, and like yeah, I mean, it's time consuming. It's not like none of this is hard to do. It just takes a long time. So yeah, I'm feeling it like it. I don't think this is the like. I think it's a lot of fun, but they should have found another format, maybe with not so many stupid bosses. Like I think 5 per area is way too many. Should be 1 per area.
Or probably extend it 1 more week.
I think making it 2
Or
weeks
that.
and getting rid of preemptives is a good start, because from what I can tell, Area 2 is the only one with preemptives, and that's just been a gong show for me.
In JP, aren't events 10 days instead of a week, and then they only have 3 events per month?
Roughly.
Yeah,
So does
probably
that
something
mean
something.
like
DV
that,
is
yeah.
10 days
And-
over there?
I'm kind of dreading that we're gonna get 15 of these every month.
Is DV also 10 days in JP?
Sinzar. Still no.
Yeah, we need to get Sinzar in here again.
That's all the time we have for this week. See you next week, nerds.
Whoa, that's mean. I love you all, listeners. Don't listen to Hazard.